What's going on, you guys? Back again with another video. Today we're going to be working on the Tacoma. Now you might be wondering why it's up on jack stands and why are the wheels and tires off. Well, today is the day. It's almost been a year, I want to say, close to a year with this truck, and since day one we've talked about it being lifted. Now I will say my lift plans changed, and honestly it's all off of pure luck, I want to call it, and I'll tell you why in a second. We're going to be working with King's 2.5 coilovers with external reservoir and adjusters on both the fronts and the rears. We're also going to be throwing on in the rear in old man MU medium duty leaf packs. We're also going to be throwing on Total Chaos Fabrication upper control arms, Uniball. Now all of this except for the springs themselves, or except for the coilovers themselves, came from Headstrong Official, so huge shout out to that website and those guys and customer service over there. And the wheels we're going to be running is Stealth Custom Series F5 in a matte black, or matte jet black. It is a 17x9 with a negative 38mm offset, which is very aggressive. I do plan on having some rubbing in the fender wells, but it's okay, we'll just do some trimming. And for tires, we're wrapping them in Wild Peak all-terrain, we're going to be wrapping them in Falcon Wild Peak all-terrain tires, and this is a 285/75 17, which is closer to a 34-inch size tire. So we're going to be running 34s. Here's the stocks. Quick little backstory on these Kings. My original plan was to go with a Bilstein 5100 setup from Headstrong Official, the old man MU kit that they sell and offer there. Now, that setup is, from what my understanding, from what I hear, a really good setup. I'm not knocking it all. That's, like I said, that's what I was gonna do. I will never ever in my life buy Kings, just because to me it's a total overkill for what I want my truck. It's my daily. I do want to dig into some off-roading and, you know, messing around and seeing what this truck really can do, but I never planned on going too crazy with the build. Well, long story short, my buddy Drew, which is the founder of the Instagram at Vilmont Market, great Instagram. Basically what it is he takes all of your guys' used stuff, new stuff, whatever it is that you are trying to sell on the Instagram community, or I should say overland community, posts them up on his Instagram, and it's kind of just like a trading, selling type deal. Well, with that being said, he also has giveaways with companies that he partners up with. He just so happened to partner up on a couple giveaways, or a giveaway, for this King suspension setup. I was scrolling through Instagram one day, I saw it, $60 ticket, said what the hell, why not? Bought the $60 ticket, totally forgot about it. Later on that night, Drew himself, the man himself, the myth, the legend, hits me up, sends me a message, tells me that I've won. Mine's freaking blown. So I'm super excited. You might be seeing these boxes over here. Stay tuned. That's another video in itself. There's a little teaser. Prinzu Designs and Cali Rays. You put two and two together and tell me what's coming next down below. My biggest goal right now is to just get rid of all the stock stuff, and then we'll worry about lifting and properly setting. I have spring compressors that I've already rented, which I'm going to compress the King's coils with, and I'm going to go ahead and move and adjust the height on those. From my understanding, 5 full turns on the locking collar will give you 1 inch, so I'm going to go for a total of 10. Now I do understand that the more that I compress those springs, the harsher the ride, but I feel like 2 inches and 10 turns will be just right from what I've read. So we're just going to dive right into this and start taking stuff off.
On eBay, there's a hydraulic one.
Oh yeah, just like that, it's out. Just wanted to show you guys a quick side-by-side of what's going in and the stock off-road. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these. I mean, these are Bilstein. Like I said, originally I was going to upgrade to a better Bilstein, but I just want to get that height. Now, the thing we're kind of fighting with right now is I rented these spring compressors, which I already know suck, but I figured what the hell. Because what I have to do is I got to compress this spring to be able to remove this locking collar downwards 10 turns to give me that 2 inch lift. However, these aren't fitting in between the grooves or the openings here, so we got to figure something out. That's just a part of doing this kind of stuff at home, and I guess not having all the proper equipment or tools. But we're gonna go ahead and move on to the upper control arm and getting that one out and reinstalling the Total Chaos. Alright, you guys, as you can see, I went ahead and got the passenger side all complete. As you can also tell, it's a brand new day. Yesterday was a bit of a learning curve, the way everything should be or as expected. My biggest issue last night, and the reason why I couldn't continue last night, was because I had to get a preload or adjustment on the King's coilovers. Out of the box, I believe they give you an inch lift. I wanted more of a 2 to 2.5. So I actually had to go out and find a shop to do this because the spring compressors that I could rent or have weren't the proper size or small enough to get in between the spring to compress it. Basically all I did was take it to a shop, they compressed the spring for me, and I decided to go with 7 full turns on the height adjustment collar. Now I did talk to Kings themselves and they recommended 5. Originally I was going to do 10. Per their specs, they said 5 would be plenty enough to clear my 34s. I went ahead and did an extra 2 just in case if I absolutely have to. I know there's a way to adjust this once it's on the truck. It's just way harder to do here opposed to taking it to a shop and having it done that way. You guys saw me remove the tie rod end for the sway bar here. I also had to remove this bottom nut to remove the OEM one. And then I also had to come back and mark my alignment points for the lower control arm. I had to remove these 2 bolts down here to drop the whole lower control arm. Another thing that I will point out is this part here, this part of the frame was actually, we bent it out towards us to pull this through bolt for the upper control arm all the way out. Now, from the videos that I've seen, people make it seem like all you do is bend this out and it slides right out. Well, for the passenger side at least, it definitely was not the case. I had to bang the hell out of this thing, and it took me probably longer to pull this bolt than to install the whole thing. But pretty simple for the most part. A bunch of just remove, reinstall, and tighten. So now that I got a better understanding of what to do from the passenger side, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the driver side, and I'll kind of show you guys a little more in depth on what I'm doing. Alright, you guys, so on this side I already went ahead and marked my alignment points on all 4 bolts, or I should say on both arms. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna remove this sway bar tie rod end. So we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to loosen up the 4 bolts for the lower control arm where your alignment cams are, and that's just loosening them. You're not taking them off. You don't want to take those all the way off and completely ruin the alignment. Next, you're going to remove the 2 bottom bolts going from the lower control into the rotor assembly itself. This one. These 2. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the lower control arm bolt that's holding the stock coilover in place. And that should be pretty much it. Then we're ready to remove the 3 bolts top of the coilover and pull the whole thing out. When you remove that bolt, careful, this whole swing arm will probably come down on you. Use one of our poker tools to get the bolt all the way out. And there it is. Bottom swing arm's out. Now we just got to remove the 3 bolts on the stock OEM shop. And that's it. Stock one's coming out. Dead blow is a good tool to kind of get these loose. Just because of the tight space in here. onto the stock shock. Move the last third bolt, and here it comes. There you go. Stock coil was out in what, literally maybe 15 minutes. Now I'm going to control. Now I'm going to work on this upper control arm, and that one is what's going to be hard. And I'll show you guys what I meant, how I had to bend this out. From my understanding, the driver's side is a lot easier, so hopefully this bolt will come just right out, because that's honestly what took me the longest yesterday. So what I'm doing here is, with a 19 on each side, I'm using a dead blow hammer just to get some play out of the two nuts, or out of the nut holding the through bolt for the upper control arm in. I'm going to get those loose. Before I pull it, I want to pull this cotter pin, remove this nut that's holding the rotor assembly to the upper control arm. And at that point you want to be careful, because you got to tap it loose and this is going to spring up. Once you got that, you got to remember to also support this rotor assembly. I have some bungee cords which I'll just wrap around and then hang on to the top hat on the frame. And that should be pretty much it. We're going to loosen up our sway bar mount onto the frame up here, because that's where our bracket, our mounting bracket for our King's reservoir is going to go. And then I also need to remove these little covers going into the engine bay. I need to remove those because I need to bang out this metal piece that I told you guys earlier. And that's pretty much it. I have some clips up here that I got to loosen up, so when I go to hammer it, I don't hit what's on the other side, which is just a wire loom. Got to loosen up. Hold both sides. You can see it drooped already a little bit. So I'm going to leave that there for now. I'm going to remove this cotter pin. To remove that cotter pin, get yourself some needle nose. Grab it from behind, pull it out, and it comes right out, just like that. Now I'm going to work on removing this one here, which I believe is actually a 19. Yep. Once again. There you go. Pull this nut all the way out. Make sure you keep track of your cotter pin and all the nuts and hardware basically that you got going on. I found it kind of confusing on the other side for the first time. This side I'm not too worried about it, just because I kind of got a better understanding where everything goes. But if you do plan on reselling your stock off-road suspension or sport suspension, you want to keep all this together. Alright, so now that it's off, I'm going to go ahead and just put it together with the cotter pin. And now before I tap this loose, I want to make sure I get my bungee and wrap this up and hold it, because like I said, as soon as it springs out, this will no longer have anything to hold on, and you don't want to put that type of pressure on your axles or your brake line or your ABS line. Alright, so I went ahead and popped my hood just to see on the other side. On the other side I do have a lot of wires and wire loom here, so you want to be real careful. Like I said, all you're going to do is grab this metal piece here with your channel locks and just pull towards you. And there is a bottom lip underneath, and all you're doing is basically bending that bottom lip out towards the outside of the fender to give yourself enough room. So now remove your stock bolt and washer there and there, and you just want to try to feed that bolt through, and it's already actually hitting something. So I need to grab some more of this little metal fender piece and pull it out. Alright, so what I ended up having to do is bend the hell out of this, and then with a small pry bar / pick, hammer it out from this way, at least on the nut head side, on the head side. Hammer it out, then go up from up top and hammer it out from up there as well. And now just feed it all the way through. No, I'll leave it little. And then for now, pull it back out this way. And there you go. Stock upper control arm is out. Last night it took me a good 45 minutes probably. Right now it took me maybe 15 at the most, just trying to hammer this out. So that's not too bad. I did have to remove that small 10mm bolt for this bracket here. and it's just basically just holding this wire loom that ends up going out to your headlights or your front headlights. And it's just a 10mm bolt with a small ratcheting wrench. I was able to get it. Before I put that back in, I'm obviously going to reinstall or install the new upper control arms. Now, part of the process of these upper control arms, you guys, is you do have to build them. I actually was on the run to the store when my brother built these, but it's pretty easy. You got your bushings, which are split right in half. You install the bushing along with their supplied lube. You lube up the bushing, you insert it into the upper control arm itself. One bushing on each side, and then you push through this metal sleeve here as well. And then on the underside, you install these Zerk fittings, which are a part of the process of greasing those up. And those need to be greased up before you completely tying down that through bolt on each side. Once we get to that part of the process, I'll show you guys what that looks like. Underneath the car, this is what you're supplied with. You're supplied with all these washers, a total of 4 for each side. And what it is it's going to go up through the same way that it came out, the bolt, through the upper control arm. Now on each side of the upper control arm, there's going to be a washer. Just like that. Just like that there. So that's what it's going to look like once it's on the truck with the OEM nut on this side. Now the hard part and the trickier part of getting this onto the truck is actually trying to squeeze these two parts in between the upper control arm the upper control arm mount that's on the truck itself. So that's the hard part, is trying to squeeze these two in between with these two washers. But once you get that on there, it's pretty much done. And then you just continue to reinstall the uniball part of it onto the spindle. So we'll go ahead and start mounting this back on the truck. Alright, so for some reason this side was way easier compared to the other side. Like I said, that kind of starting to make sense why when I was watching videos on how to do this, I was only seeing this side being done. But as you can see, I got two, or I'm not sure if you can see it, but I got two of these washers on each side of these polyurethane bushings, the red bushings on this opposite side. All I'm going to have to do now is slide this one in between here, run that bolt all the way through. Well, now we're at the point where the bolt's getting stuck up top. So all we're going to have to do is go back ahead and start just hammering it in and pass this fender well, or this side of the metal fender. Alright, so I did the same way. All I did was use that pry tool, hammer it onto the head a little bit to push it all the way through. As you can see, we're going through both washers on this side. Now, to top it off, you're going to grab another washer with the nut. Wrong nut. Screw it into place just to hold it tight. And that's pretty much it. Now you can continue to reinstall the rest of your suspension components. Before I move on, I'm going to go back up top and reinstall this 10mm bolt that I removed from that bracket holding onto that wire loom. I'll pick it back up once we're back under here. So now that we got our through bolt in all the way, we can go back and kind of just try to bend back the damage or what we did under here. Alright, so I go ahead and get my grease gun, connect it to the fitting there, start pumping it up. I don't know how good the camera's gonna get it. Alright guys, so I went ahead and greased it up. I had to run and get some more grease. As you can see there, the grease is starting to come out on each side, so that's good. Wipe it all clean, and now I'm ready to tighten up these bolts. I believe it's 85 foot-pounds, and then we'll move on to installing our hardware onto the uniball section of it, and then put in the new coil. Alright, so Total Chaos sends you instructions, installation instructions, and they send you a pretty cool diagram which basically shows you exactly how everything goes. For the hardware, it's bolt, or it's washer, bolt, and then this little adapter piece that goes on top of the spindle. It goes through there, and then on the bottom you just got a washer and another bolt. It's basically all you're looking at. I'll go ahead and loosen up these bungees. Alright, I got my upper control arm in. All the hardware for that is tight. I believe this is 100 foot-pounds of torque, and these are 85. So I got the through bolt tightened. This is tightened. I got to remove this bracket so I'm able to zip tie this ABS line to it. And that is pretty much it as far as the upper control arm. I'm going to move forward and install the new coilover, install the mounting bracket for the reservoir, which goes in between the sway bar mount and the frame, and that's pretty much it. And then we can reconnect our sway bar spindle, lower control arm bolts, which is 3 of them, retighten everything, and we should be golden as far as the front suspension. Alright you guys, so what I went ahead and did is I removed the 14mm bolts up here for the sway bar, and now that should give us plenty of clearance to try to get this coilover up and in. Beefy. Alright, sway bar's in place. Grab one of the nuts just to kind of hold it.
Sway bar?
I'm sorry, the coilover. Alright, and she is in. So now I'm going to move on to installing the bracket for the reservoir mount, which will be like that. And then we'll tighten up all the bolts. I'm gonna put thread locker on those, bring that lower control arm up, install the sway bar. Now the sway bar actually kind of gets relocated with the King's reservoir mount. The mount itself kind of gives it some play, so the sway bar kind of moves away from your upper control arm, which is pretty cool. And that's pretty much it. We'll bolt it back up and finish it off. Alright guys, so unfortunately my battery died, so I went ahead and just finished up the install. I went ahead and mounted the bracket for the remote reservoir, the 2 hose clamps that hold the reservoir in place. Like I said, the mounting bracket for the reservoir acts sort of like a spacer and pushes out the sway bar support out towards the front of the car. That is the old hole where the spacer used to sit, and that'll ensure that now your sway bar is further away from your coil, giving you enough space between your coil, your sway bar, and of course your upper control arm. Everything is tight. I went ahead and Loctite these 3 up here. Those are tight. Like I said, I went ahead and went 7 turns high, or 7 turns on this collar to give me a lift of hopefully around 1.5 inches, or I'm sorry, from stock 2 inches to 2.5. Everything is tight, everything is lined up. I went ahead and lined up my camber bolts back to the marking that I originally did before I started the install. And that's pretty much it. Everything's back to normal. Out with the old and with the new. Alright you guys, so I went ahead and jumped into this diff install just on my own, because honestly I had to learn as I was going, and I just got caught up on it and really didn't pick up the camera. But I'll do a quick recap. As you can see, underneath the transfer case skid plate, there's 2 spacers up top, and it gets replaced with its own bolt that comes in the pack. And then to get to those, well, actually the first step is to remove all of these here, to remove this brace. Then you do those 2 spacers on the transfer case skid plate, and then you move to the differential spacer itself, which is this here. All you do is you remove this big bolt, comes out, replace it or install your new spacer, and then you use the new hardware that comes in the kit. This is the old hardware along with a locking nut up top, and that's pretty much it. Now, one of the things that is said to be on the kit, on the instructions itself, it says that you may need to either cut or, like we did, grind away at this corner because it was rubbing up against this this rest here for the diff. Which is what we did. We just grabbed the dremeled some of it out, and now we're good. It's really tight there, but it is not touching, so that's all that matters. So we're back to normal. So now the only 2 spacers that are left in the kit are these 2 here, and the way these are going to go is you're going to put your front skid plate back on, which I am ready to do so now. I got both sides done as far as the coilover and upper control arms install. The 2 front bolts are going to be the stock OEM bolts, and then the 2 rear bolts are going to be replaced with these 2, and then along with a spacer in between each. Since we did drop this whole brace down or space it out, now we need to compensate for that space on the front skid plate with these spacers. So we'll go ahead and put those on, and then we're ready to put the tires back on the front. There you go, you guys. The fronts are officially done, along with that diff drop. So that's pretty much it, you guys. Stay tuned for the rear end video. That's going to be a good one from my understanding, and fingers crossed, and I'm hoping it's going to be way easier than these fronts, but these fronts were that hard. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.